Hello and welcome back to our Lord of the Rings LCG solo progression series. And today's quest is Trouble in Tharbad, which is the third adventure pack in the Ringmaker cycle. A quick reminder, in this series we're playing through each quest in chronological order of the game's initial release, and we'll only be using player cards that were available at the time of this quest's release. I'm calling this deck Barely an Inconvenience. It's in reference to a series of videos on YouTube and probably elsewhere called Pitch Meeting. They're really funny. I recommend them if you have not seen them. They make fun of of movies in those videos. They're really funny. And so basically the goal of this deck is to ensure that this is really no trouble at all, barely an inconvenience. If you know the series, you know the reference. So when I first started kind of understanding Trouble in Tharbad and tried to build a deck that did well, I thought at first, well, let's use Haldir of Lorien. Because he's new, he comes out in Trouble in Tharbad. It'd be fun to use the accompanying hero, but just struggled a little bit in terms of making willpower progress. And so I found that this combination of Pippin and Sam works great. So Sam, of course, has his response where he readies when you engage enemies with a higher engagement cost than your threat. And this is the first time I've used Pippin. It's a great hero. We just haven't used him yet. He's a lore Hobbit hero with 6 threat, and we need his willpower, 2 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, 2 health. Each enemy in play gets +1 engagement cost for each Hobbit hero you control. So he'll boost the engagement cost of any enemy by 2, unless it's immune to player card effects. Response: after you engage an enemy with an engagement cost higher than your threat, draw a card. And it's worth noting that that enemy can be immune to player card effects, and we still draw a card because, anyway, long story, but maybe we'll get to that. Not in this quest, but in the future one. But he's great, and we have Grima to help us kind of get going quickly. Now, you have to be careful. You don't want to just go crazy with Dune because the threat elimination level lowers as the game progresses. So you have to be careful and not just be foolhardy with that. But let's get to the quest and see how we do. Opening hand is not good. Let's go ahead and mulligan it. And we got some card draw and Steward of Gondor. Oh my gosh, really good opening hand. I'll take it. As I was going down the line, I just kept finding myself increasingly surprised. Good opening hand. Okay, double dealings. What's happening in the story at this point, at the end of the 3 trials, we were successful. And so we are let go by the Boar clan. And so we are going to continue on our journey to find Nalir the dwarf for Sauron. No, not Sauron, Saruman. And he has sent us to find the map that Nalir has to the hidden location of Celebrimbor's Forge. So we find Nalir the dwarf in the Empty Mug Tavern, and he tells us he's already sold the map, or agreed to sell the map, to a person named Belloc. I wonder where they got that name. But Belloc, for some reason, has not picked up the map. He's going to come back and get it later that night. So we show Nalir the dwarf how much gold we have, and we have more money than Belloc was offering, and so Nalir agrees to sell it to us. Right at that time, Belloc comes back, and he's upset, obviously, that the Nalir is reneging on their agreement, and so he has the orcs attack. He has orcs in tow, so he's a bad guy. And so he commands the orcs to attack and try to get the map. And the map is ripped in half, and so Nalir has half the map and an orc has the other half. And so we're trying to get out of trouble here in Tharbad. Your meeting with Nalir is interrupted by a host of orcs led by a man, Belloc. We call him Balash. In the ensuing chaos, you manage to escape with the dwarf, but the orcs pursue. Outnumbered, you must throw the orcs off your trail if you hope to escape. For setup, we set Belloc into crossing at Tharbad aside out of play. Here are those 2 cards. And then we search the encounter deck for 1 copy of Spy from Mordor per player and add them to the staging area. There's 4, so we'll shuffle 3 back in. Spy from Mordor has an engagement cost of 42 with Pippin. Force: when Spy from Mordor attacks, remove 1 time counter from the current quest. Now we make the Empty Mug the active location. Empty Mug says players cannot reduce their threat. Full stop. We just can't while this is in play. But when it goes to the victory display, it also sort of affects us because it has a forced effect that hovers over the game when this is in the victory display. After a player card effect reduces a player's threat, remove it from the game. So that would include events or even Gandalf's response, things like that. So you could use the threat reduction card, but it would just be removed from the game. All right, and now the first player takes control of Nalir as an ally. Now, it's debatable if he's an ally. A lot of people would say he's a treachery. I just think he's just a good thematic objective. It just makes the quest unique because of the way threat is just so dynamic in this quest. So Nalir is with us. He's not really our friend. He's a scoundrel, and he's looking out for himself. So, Force, at the beginning of the refresh phase, raise your threat by 1 for each player in the game. I think thematically that just means the orcs are after him, right? But so he's a little bit like Gollum from Return to Mirkwood, but not quite as bad. If he leaves play, we lose the game. And so that's it for side 1A. Side 1B, we have 4 time counters on the current quest here. And there's a force effect. After the last time counter is removed from this quest, reduce each player's threat elimination by 10 for the remainder of the game, then place 4 time counters on the stage. So if we somehow get down to 0 time counters, threat elimination is no longer 50, it's going to go down to 40 for the rest of the game. 4 time counters placed back on. If that goes down again, now threat elimination is 30. So you could conceivably lose a game by just staying here for too long, and eventually the threat elimination level would catch up to you, because the threat elimination level of 0 means you've lost. But there's a force effect. After 1 or more progress is placed on this quest, cancel all progress and reduce each player's threat by an equal amount. So if I made 23 progress on the quest, that is, then I would reduce my threat to 0. And it says, when all players have 0 threat, immediately proceed to stage 2. So I like the way this deck is designed, in the sense that you have that lowering ceiling of threat elimination level, and we're trying to keep our threat low enough to not threat out. Now this, eventually, if we can get past that point, that tension, then we're going to be fine. We'll get all of our allies out and boost them with Faramir. We'll make tons of progress, and our threat will go way, way down. Just have to be careful during the initial rounds. So resource phase. And we're going to use Grima's action, lower the cost of the next card you play from your hand by 1. That card gains Doomed 1. So Doomed 1, and we lower the cost of Steward of Gondor to just 1. We'll attach that to Sam. He now has the Gondor trait. That's important for this particular deck, and he gets 2 resources back. We can put into play for free, Build a Pony. Lower the cost to play Build a Pony by 2 if you control Sam Gamgee, which we do. Each Hobbit character each Hobbit character period gets +1 hit point. That would be true for multiplayer, all Hobbits on the table. Let's go ahead and play Deep Knowledge, Doom 2, draw 2 cards. And again, Deep Knowledge, draw 2 cards. Let's go ahead and, let me see, 3. Let's go ahead and put out a Dunedain Mark. We'll attach that to Sam. And so this gives him +1 attack. And Sam's assuming his response, if we engage an enemy, like if we engage Spy from Mordor, his engagement is going to be higher than our threat. Sam would be attacking for +1 there, +1 from Dunedain Mark. So his attack is actually 3, assuming his response, and assuming, of course, Dunedain Mark. And now let's put out Squire of the Citadel. And we're going to quest with Sam and with Pippin. And that's it for now. We're going to reveal Orc Hunter. When revealed, either reveal an additional encounter card or remove 1 time counter from the current quest. We'll remove a time counter from the current quest. And now during the travel phase, nowhere to go. We did make 1 progress on the empty mug. During the encounter phase, this is actually an engagement cost of 37 because of Pippin. Let's engage him optionally, which means Pippin's response fires. Response: after you engage an enemy with a engagement cost higher than your threat, draw a card. And Sam readies. Now he's going to attack for 3. We'll block with Squire of the Citadel. And he leaves play. Response: after Squire of the Citadel leaves play, add 1 resource to a Gondor hero's resource pool. Sam is now a Gondor hero. He attacks for 3 because of his response, and Dunedain mark 3, 4, 5, 6, which I was ready to be able, like, this one came out, so let's deal with him first, but I was able, if another enemy hadn't come out, I was planning on dealing with Spy from Mordor, so I could have had enough attack and attack to destroy him, but we'll just do Orc Hunter instead. And at the beginning of the refresh phase, our threat goes up by 1 because of Nalir's forced effect right here. At the beginning of the refresh phase, raise your threat by 1. And we will refresh. And during the refresh action window, let's play Peace and Thought. Refresh action, exhaust 2 heroes to draw 5 cards. Do I want to do that, or do I need the willpower more from Grima and Pippin? I think we're fine to do it. It's already paid for it. Let's play it and exhaust Pippin and Grima to draw 5 cards. And at the end of the refresh phase, we remove time counters and move on to round 2. All right, Steward of Gondor. Let's play Mithrander's Device. Draw 1 card for each hero you control with a printed lore resource icon. So 2 cards drawn. There we go. Sneak attack and Gandalf is great. Things are working out really well. Let's go ahead and play Ranger Spikes and put it into the staging area. Let's use Grima's action to lower the cost of the next card you play from your hand this round by 1. So we're just going to spend nothing. Sorry about that. We're going to spend nothing to put out Dunedain Mark. And so Sam's attack is now 4, considering his response, or assuming his response. And then we are going to put out Squire of the Citadel, just in case we need to chump this round. And I'm going to go ahead and sneak attack Gandalf into play. Let me think. 4. Yeah. Let's sneak attack Gandalf into play. And rather than drawing cards, a lot of times I would draw cards right now with Gandalf. Let's go ahead and destroy Spy from Mordor. We'll just do 4 damage to Spy from Mordor. And we're going to quest and make enough progress, hopefully, to clear the empty mug. We reveal Orc Hound, and so Ranger Spikes grabs it, so its threat is 0. It surges into Orc Skirmisher, and we made 4 progress. So 1, 2, 3, and 1 progress on double dealings. Forced, after 1 or more progress is placed on this quest, cancel all progress and reduce each player's threat by an equal amount. So our threat goes down to 29. This goes to the victory display. Gandalf comes back to hand at the end of questing. During the travel phase, nowhere to go. During the encounter phase, we will go ahead and optionally engage Orc Skirmisher. And it says, forced, after Orc Skirmisher engages a player, that player must deal 3 damage to a character he controls, or remove 1 time counter from the current quest. We'll remove a time counter. And we drew a card because of Pippin, and Sam readied. And now Orc Skirmisher is going to attack for 4. We'll defend with Squire of the Citadel. And so let's see what we get. No shadow. Response, after Squire of the Citadel leaves play, add 1 resource to a Gondor or nobles to a Gondor hero's resource pool. So Sam gets the resource. So we can attack for 4, 5, and 6, and we destroy Orc Skirmisher. And it's probably stupid that I did that, because there is a shadow that says the enemy can attack, make an additional attack. I would have then chumped with Bill the Pony, and I'd have, I would not have been able to destroy the Orc Skirmisher. It worked out, but I probably should have been a little more cautious. At the beginning of the refresh phase, we raise our threat to 30. We refresh, and that means our threat is 31. And during the refresh action window, nothing to do. End of the refresh phase, we remove time counters, which means double dealings, forced effect fires. After the last time counter is removed from this quest, reduce each player's threat elimination by 10 for the remainder of the game. So our threat elimination is 40. And now we place 4 time counters on double dealings. Next round. We'll exhaust Steward of Gondor. And I don't know what's coming here. I can't put out Ranger Spikes and Gleowine. Well, I could do Gleowine with Herald of Anorian potentially. So we want to be careful. There is a card in this deck. I'll just shuffle here in a second. This is probably the greatest threat to us. It's a treachery called Conspicuous Lot. When revealed, each player raises his threat by 1 for each ally he controls. Then if any player's threat is 20 or less, this card gains Surge. So if that were to come out, right now my threat would only go up by 2 because Nalir is an ally and so is Build-A-Pony. So you can see pretty quickly, especially the first couple of rounds, you can lose the 4 time counters pretty quickly. And so you want to be careful not to have an army of allies not really questing for a lot. So you have to be careful with Doomed and with just spamming allies too much, because if that comes out, right now if we had 9 allies and we quested, we don't have a way to cancel that. So our threat would go up by 9 and we'd lose the game because we'd threat up to 40. Now granted, if we hadn't lost, we would have then made progress and lowered our threat. But not before we threaded out. So you have to be thoughtful and be careful about all that stuff. Let's go ahead and play Gleowine from hand. And I'll just use both my lore resources. We're going to play Gleowine and exhaust Gleowine to draw a card. Okay, there's sneak attack. That's just a good feeling. Let's use Grima's action to lower the cost of the next card we play from hand by 1, or just that we play. Yeah, from hand by 1. So Doom 1 and 3 cost, we'll play Faramir. And then we're going to play Herald of Anorian from hand. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't want to do that, because if I do, my threat goes up to 34, and I would have 6 allies. I could lose the game if Conspicuous Lot came out. So I think what I'm going to do is just quest here. If I need, I can sneak attack Gandalf in if something happens, but we're going to try to make some progress. I've got enough to attack back for 4, 5, and 6. I just don't have a chump. But again, if we need to, we can sneak attack Gandalf into play or something. So let's just make progress here. Let's not worry about engaging an enemy. In fact, we'll just say that we sneak attack Gandalf into play before we committed characters, and we drew 3 cards. And Faramir is going to exhaust to boost all of our characters. He's going to give them all +1. Let's go ahead and just do it this way. Let's give everybody +1 and just prevent refresh on Faramir. That helps me just to not have to always do the math. Like if they're boosted, then I just know exactly what the willpower is. And we reveal Spy from Mordor. We made 17 progress on the current quest, and so our threat goes down by 17, which is going to be down to 15. Is that right? Yeah. So we went all the way down to a threat of 15. That's why I thought it might be good just to go ahead and bring Gandalf in, because then if an enemy came out, I'm not worried about it engaging us at 15. Gandalf comes back to hand, and we're not going to engage Spy from Mordor for sure. We'll refresh, and we can't play Peace and Thought. We don't have the resources to do it. So at the end of the refresh phase, we remove time counters and move on to the next round. And now we might turtle just a little bit to get things set up. Let's exhaust Gleowine to draw a card. And Daron's Runes draws us 2 cards, and we discard Steward of Gondor. And now we can use the doomed keyword without worrying as much. In fact, let's go ahead and let's use the doomed keyword on Grima here. Lower the cost of the next card you play from your hand this round by 1. That card gains doomed 1. We're going to make it this be this Ranger Spikes. So doomed 1 on that. And that way we can play Peace and Thought at the end of the refresh action window. Let's play Herald of Anorian. And his response, well, you may give Herald of Anorian Doom 2 when you play it from hand. Let's do that so we're at 19. If you do, it gains a response. After you play Herald of Anorian, choose a player. That player may put into play 1 ally from his hand with a printed cost of 2 or lower. And so we'll put into play this Erebor Hammersmith. And we'll attach this Dunedain Mark to Sam, so he's at his full complement. He can attack for 5, assuming his response. There we go. We will also just play here a Pelargir Ship Captain. And he has a response, which we're not going to worry about. We want to leave this resource on Grima, but you can move a resource around. Okay, remember, we've just intentionally left Faramir exhausted. And we don't know what's coming. Our threat elimination level is 40, but we don't have 20 allies, so we're really good here. Let's quest. And be careful about making too much progress. We want to be able to attack for 5, 6, 7. See, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's all we're going to make, because there is an enemy. Well, with Ranger Spikes, we wouldn't worry about it, would we? 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we'll just chill there. And we revealed, okay, because I was thinking that might come out. Get that dwarf. When revealed, the enemy in the staging area with the highest attack engages the first player and makes an immediate attack against Nalir. So he comes down. This is during staging. And so if there were no enemies in the staging area, Get that dwarf would gain surge. So he makes an immediate attack. Now, it says against Nalir. I don't have to defend with Nalir. I can chump for Nalir, which I'm going to do. I'm going to chump right now. And it's important. I think really when it says make an attack against a character, really the only rule is that you would place undefended damage on that character. So I can block with anybody if with a substitute blocker. It doesn't have to be Nalir. But if I don't have anybody to block, then undefended damage goes on Nalir. He's the target. It can't be a hero. So that's kind of an interesting rule. But Spy from Mortar is going to attack and destroy Herald of Anorian. And a time counter was removed because of his forced effect. So he leaves play. And we made 10 progress and lowered our threat down to 9. So even though, we'll see our threat elimination level go down, we're not worried. Okay, in response, when he engaged us, we should have drawn a card with Pippin, and Sam would have ready, because his engagement cost is higher. He just was forced to engage us because of Get That Dwarf. And now during combat, he's going to attack for 3, and we'll just block that attack with Build a Pony. And it says raise the defending player's threat by X, where X is the amount of damage dealt by this attack. 3 attack against 0 defense. This is going to be 3 damage, so our threat goes up by 3. And that time counter was removed from his attack. And we attack for 5, and 6 is enough just to destroy Spy from Mordor. Oh yeah, he left play. Okay, refresh. At the beginning of the refresh phase, we raise our threat by 1 because of Nalir. During the refresh action window, let's play Peace and Thought, exhausting Grima and Pippin to fuel it. And then we'll remove time counters at the end of the refresh action or refresh phase. And so now our threat elimination level is 30. And we place 4 time counters on the current quest. Next round. Steward of Gondor, Glaewine will draw us a card here. Let's play Daeron's Runes to draw 2 cards. And discard Faramir. Let's play Mithrander's Advice to draw 2 cards. We'll play Deep Knowledge to draw 2 cards, Doom 2. And then we will put out for free Build a Pony. That's one reason why he just makes a good chump. And we really want to have 9 attack ready, but with Ranger Spikes, we don't have to keep doing this. We really don't have to continue to engage enemies. And so I won't choose to really moving forward. Sometimes it's important initially to do that, but and sometimes you can't avoid it because of cards like, what's it called? Get that dwarf, but there's also Orc Hunting Party. And so sometimes you just don't want to amass enemies because of Orc Hunting Party in particular. All right, so I want to save this resource for, do I want to for Peace and Thought? Nah, let's go ahead and just play Mithrander's Advice to draw 2 cards. We'll play Daron's Runes to draw 2 cards. And we're going to discard this Steward of Gondor. And so yeah, next round we'll draw with Gleowine. We'll draw all of our deck. So let's maybe spend some resources here. Let's go ahead and play Herald of Anorian and give it Doom 2. And we can put a card into play for free that costs 2 or less. We'll put into play Envoy of Pelargir. Response: after Envoy of Pelargir enters play, add 1 resource to a Gondor or Noble Heroes resource pool. So Sam gets a resource there. And then we will play Pelargir Ship Captain, and we won't move a resource around here. Okay, I want to be careful. I kind of want to get set up before I move on. Probably needlessly. I don't know that I really need to, but let's quest. 5, 6, 7. I don't know. We have Ranger Spikes, so I'm not worried. That was fine with me. And we reveal Decrepit Rooftops. We made 10 progress. Threat goes down to 8. And we'll travel to Decrepit Rooftops. Decrepit Rooftops says when it's the active location, enemies get +1 threat and do not make engagement checks. Still true, the Orc Hound will not make engagement checks because of Ranger Spikes. So his threat is at 2, -2, so he's still at 0. So he just is a non-factor. Forced: after traveling to Decrepit Rooftops, return all engaged enemies to the staging area. So it's kind of cool if you had a lot of enemies, you jump up on the roof and they're not engaged with you anymore. Kind of neat. Okay, we will refresh. At the beginning of the refresh phase, we raise our threat because of Nalir. And we remove time counters at the end of the refresh phase. Did I not use Grima's action last round? I guess I didn't. So let's say that we did, and that we had put in Hinemarth. So moving forward, I have him. I should use his action every round. Refresh. That's why I like the time counters. It helps me remember if I've done it or not. Next round. Okay, Steward of Gondor and Gleowine draws us our last card. And we will use Grima's action to lower the cost of the next card we play, giving it Doom 1. So for Doom 1, or for 1 resource, we can put into play this, well, for 0 resources, we'll put into play this Squire of the Citadel. And then 2 costs, let's play Herald of Anorian and give it Doom 2. And we can put into play Envoy of Pelargir. And she puts a resource on a Gondor Heroes resource pool. It's Sam. And we'll play Pelargir Ship Captain. And we'll move a resource. Well, we don't need to. I guess we could just move on. I don't need to optimize everything to death here. I'll wait one more round. Just try to get everything out. It's kind of fun to wait just a little bit. Do I want to move a resource using Pelargir ship captain's response? Do I want to move a resource over to Sam? I guess so, just in case I need. Well, no, I need to be able to pay for the airborne hammersmiths. We're kind of out of resources. We don't have anything to spend Sam's resources on anymore. That seems good to me, whatever. Okay, we reveal Orc Skirmisher. And so its threat is down to 1. And we made 11 progress. So that goes out of play. And actually, a little bit worse than that. So he was actually boosted to 4. -2. So he's 2 threats. So we made 10 progress. So 7 progress on the current quest. And that leaves play. And let's use Hinnemarth River Song to see what's coming next. Now we refresh. And at the beginning of the refresh phase, we raise our threat. And we're done with drawing cards. So next round, we'll move on here. We will play Envoy of Pelargir. When she enters play, she refunds Sam. We should have removed time counters, so we're down to 2. I don't think I've forgotten any time counters yet. Let's use Grima's action to lower the cost of this Erebor Hammersmith to 1. And then we'll play our second Erebor Hammersmith, and so I think we played all of our allies. And he should have grabbed the topmost discarded attachment in response. Both of them should have, so I should have 2 more cards in hand. And we know it's coming. It's not an enemy or anything like that. So let's just quest and make more progress than we need. Just that'll work. And we reveal Decrepit Rooftops, and we made 16 progress. So our threat goes down by 16, so down to 0. And we've advanced. And remember, our threat elimination level is 30. Because it says when all players have 0 threat, immediately proceed to stage 2. Escape from Tharbad. You've eluded the orcs and you make haste for the river crossing. If you can get across, perhaps you can escape. But Belloc has cleverly set a patrol at the ford, and you are quickly spotted. You make a dash for the river. When revealed, add Belloc and the crossing at Tharbad to the staging area. So here are those cards. Entering staging. Let's kind of organize ourselves here. Let's look at those 2 cards. Crossing at Tharbad has a threat of 2. Immune to player card effects, and it cannot leave the staging area. It says the crossing at Tharbad gets +2 quest points for each player in the game. So its quest points are 12. And when the crossing at Tharbad is explored, the players win the game. Belloc has a threat of X, which is 1. Number of players in the game. Orc and creature enemies get -30 engagement cost and +1 threat. So, Orc Skirmisher has +1, but then -2. He has +1, -2. So there we go. And they won't make engagement checks. It says they can't make engagement checks. Or they get -30 engagement costs, but they can't make engagement checks. So even if our threat was 30 or whatever, they wouldn't engage us unless we optionally engage them. Force, when Belloc is destroyed, shuffle him into the encounter deck. We're not going to destroy him. We're just going to quest next round and win the game. Now we shuffle the encounter discard pile into the encounter deck. We'll discard cards from the encounter deck until X orc enemies have been discarded. X is the number of players in the game, so 1. And then we would add all discarded orcs to the staging area. So this is going to be shuffled in, and we just discard until we see an orc. There we go. So he's added to staging, and he's boosted by Belloc. And time counters is 3. It says after the last time counter is removed from this quest, either raise each player's threat by 3, or Belloc makes an immediate attack against LOTR. Then place 3 time counters on this stage. We won't worry about all that because we're not going to engage Belloc unless next round that card comes out that says the enemy with the highest attack makes an immediate attack. What is that called? Get that dwarf. Progress that would be placed on this quest is instead placed on the crossing at Tharbad. So if I make 12 progress next round, I win the quest because all the progress goes on crossing at Tharbad. It just stays in staging. After a character leaves play, raise its controller's threat by 4. Okay, what's coming next round? Okay, hidden alleyway. So we actually know what's coming. We'll just go ahead and refresh, and the LOTR raises our threat by 1. We're not going to optionally engage anybody. We will have traveled here, I guess. No, there's no reason to. That's going to raise everybody's threat. So we'll just leave him. We'll leave that in staging. Okay, at the end of the refresh phase, we remove time counters and move on to the final round. We'll win it right here. We've played all of our allies. Let's go ahead and just sneak attack again. I'm going to play. And when we do, we'll just destroy Orc Hunter. Just get rid of its threat altogether. And we'll quest with everybody, including Henemarth. He's boosted. And we reveal hidden alleyway, and we made 35 progress. Instead of putting progress on escape from Tharbad, we actually put it on crossing at Tharbad. So there we go. 35 progress. When the crossing at Tharbad is explored, the players win the game. We weren't worried about this travel effect. We weren't going to travel here. So you really don't have to destroy Belloc. It's not necessary. You just get everything out and you just quest past. So where you can lose the quest potentially is the first few rounds, like so many quests. Could be a little bit of swinginess. Sometimes conspicuous lot is a real issue. Let's just look at the encounter cards. I'm going to shuffle everything in just so that I, make sure I've remembered what all is in the deck. Enemy-wise, so Belloc's Marauder is a problem because its engagement is pretty low. So in the first couple of rounds, it's easy for your threat to get up to 30, especially if you get Doom happy. And so he can engage us and make our life miserable. And you have to attack for a total of 9. It's kind of hard to do in the first few rounds, so he's a bummer. He's a great target for Ranger Spikes. So I like to put out Ranger Spikes in the first few rounds, just in case he comes out. Then I don't have to worry about him. The biggest problem with him, though, would be Get That Dwarf would force him to attack, to engage us, even if he had a Ranger Spikes, because that's not an engagement check. It just forces an enemy to engage you. You have to be careful and just have chumps. And that's why agreement is so important. I mean, it does create the issue of our threat going up a little bit more than we would like it to, but you've got to be able to afford all these cards in a few rounds. I mean, it's eight rounds in. We spent a lot of resources, a lot in large part because of Grima. I think we saw all the other enemies. We just didn't see the worst one. Locations, nothing really to say. Some of these are, like this one makes you add a spy, so it's kind of neat if you can put out Ranger Spikes and then travel. But again, any enemy with Ranger Spikes is prone to attack you if you get that dwarf. This one adds a time counter to the current quest, so it's really fun to travel here. Might as well. This one's cool. In fact, I use this a lot of times to go ahead and attack the Spy from Mordor, because when it's the active location, time counters cannot be removed from the current quest. So I love getting this in round 1 and just traveling here and engaging that Spy from Mordor, because when it attacks us, it won't remove. Where's it at? It won't remove time counters because they can't be removed. So I think that's kind of neat. And treacheries, nothing really that's just a threat booster. This one can be a problem, but not if you have Ranger Spikes out. But this is one reason why I built a deck that kind of whittles away the enemies, because you don't want 3 or 4 enemies, with engagement costs higher than your threat. And then this happens and you get engaged by everybody. That can be a problem. Conspicuous lot, just be super careful. Don't threat out with the lowering ceiling. I don't know. That's it. That's the quest, and hope you enjoyed it. And I definitely turtled. I don't remember. I've done a few playthroughs in preparation for this recording. I don't remember turtling like that ever. So it was kind of a weird playthrough, but it just worked out that way. Usually I'm just kind of putting everything out, and I advanced to the final stage still with some allies in hand, but I just felt the need to just optimize everything. But that is the quest, and hopefully every card in the deck makes a little bit of sense to you. Thank you for joining me as always. Hope you will again next time, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.